This is the Motor Asha podcast.
So hi Yogesh,
Hi.
welcome back. We had a lot of people who wrote to us saying that Mr. Yogesh has got some good inputs towards the last topic that we had tackled, which was intakes and exhaust. So we thought we'd call you back, but this time I think we decided that let's get on to a topic that is more specific to a motorcycle and a thing that is always it is part of a motorcycle and not many people think about it or take care of it. So our topic for today with you is bearings. So I'm going to ask you, I'll start off with why does a bike need a bearing for the first thing, and while you're answering that question you can probably even address the fact that what are the different types of bearings that are there in the bike.
Hi. So, yes, bearings are the most important part in all the applications. Not only motorcycles, but everywhere. Whatever rotates needs a bearing. So, bearings are friction, to reduce the amount of friction from a rotational motion, a bearing is needed. Earlier, before the bearings were invented, people used to put bushings. Bushings in the sense like one metal piece of, uh, for example, you take an axle, front wheel axle. So when bearings were not there, this is a very very old times. When bearings were not there, people used to use bush like they used to use some kind of packing material to reduce the friction. But later on, when the bearings were invented, so the bearings totally changed the world's, the technology, the what you call the how the things operate and how the things roll. The bearings change the face of the this thing, industry. So actually, everything, motorcycles, cycles, cars, planes, rockets, everything uses a bearing. Machines. So without a bearing, it's not possible to do, means whatever you are having, enjoying, you are holding your, means people who are listening to this audio via a mobile recorder, that mobile is also manufactured on machines which use bearings. So bearings are, means they are the part, such a part that you need to have a bearing. I'll give you an example how important is a bearing. You won't have a engine on your motorcycle.
Yeah.
You can, with the wheels, you can just, with your leg, you can make that motorcycle run. Because it has a wheel and it has a bearing.
Got it.
So, bearings.
So they're a very important part
Very
to a
important
very
part of
important
a
part. Okay.
Motorcycle.
So basically what you're trying to say is that bearing just helps in something to move without any friction.
Without any
And
friction.
a bearing can be on the side of a part
Yes.
that is moving, but that part can be moving as well as the bearing moves with it. Is that exactly what it does?
Yes. So, bearings are constructed like, bearing has two parts. One is a stationary part which is fixed, and the other is a moving part which rotates with the, for example, you take the wheel. So the outer cage of that bearings, it has two cages, outer cage and inner cage. So inner cage and outer cage, the outer cage is fixed, the inner cage rotates. So as the wheel will rotate. So between that inner cage and outer cage there are balls which consist and makes of a bearing.
Yeah. Got it.
So now even if bearings are there, see there are types of bearing. There is a ball bearing. There is a oval ball bearing, which is not used in motorcycles anywhere, but this is a type of it. So there are types of bearings. There are types of variations of
Yeah.
bearings also in sizes. So front wheel for example, uses one type and one size of bearing, so rear wheel will use another type of and another size of bearing. But if the front wheel is using a ball bearing, the rear will also use a ball bearing. Rarely in some bikes they will use a needle roller bearing, which is one more type, which instead of balls they use needle. The balls are shaped like needle pins.
Yeah.
So those are called needle roller bearings.
I believe those are even in suspension drop links as well as they use.
So they are used in swing arms, all bikes, all super bikes, all, even you take this KT and you take a Dominar, you take everything. Today's technology and today's manufacturer use a needle roller bearing
Yeah.
in swing arms, suspension linkages. Many sprocket hubs have the needle roller bearing inside.
Yeah.
So like that. Even gearbox, the gears assembly of a motorcycle has a needle roller bearing in it.
Okay. Got it. So I think you've answered all the bearings. I think you missed out on one, which was the steering.
The steering bearings is steering bearings. In steering also there are two types of bearings. Normally and generally people for a commercial use they use a ball bearing which is called as a cage bearing. So they use cage bearings. But fewer old bikes, fewer companies still use separate balls.
Yeah.
Means the balls are not in a cage, they are separate. You have to put
Yeah.
those balls manually inside that cup where you hold it's called a cone set, cone bearings. So you have to put separately those balls. So there are X number of balls in top cone and X number of balls in lower cone. So but today all the performance bikes, even you can say that 90 to 93% manufacturer and bikes today use cage bearings.
Yeah.
So cage ball bearings are the most reliable bearings today in all the commercial vehicles, which are commercial bikes, means commercially manufactured and production motorcycles. They all use these cage ball bearings. In higher class of motorcycles, say for you are using a enduro motorcycle or a dirt motorcycle or a super sports motorcycle, they use a taper roller bearing. Taper means it has a taper. It's like a A-shaped bearing. So it's combination of a needle roller and a ball bearing.
Yeah.
So
It's a little longer as well.
so the thickness of those rollers in that, they are a little bit thick than
Yeah.
the normal needle roller bearing. So they are tapered. So that's why they are called tapered. It's a cone shaped bearing, so they are called taper.
Yeah.
Taper cone bearings.
Yeah. So I believe that is a technological advancement to
Yes.
a roll cage.
Yes.
Okay. So in the sense of a wheel bearing, is there an advancement that has happened yet? Is sealed bearings the next, or is there an advancement in wheel bearings or other bearings on the bike? Because I mean, the first upgrade that a lot of people do is to stiffen the chassis up, to stiffen the steering up, they put tapered bearings because there's more. I believe there's more contact patch when you have a tapered bearing
Correct.
to the cone set,
Yes.
and it helps in your rigidity. Is there an advancement that has happened in wheel bearings or any other bearings? Is there something that has happened yet, or are we still on
On roller bearings.
we on roller bearings?
Yes. Because see, a little bit technical, I'll explain. Roller bearings, you cannot use a taper roller bearing in a wheel. The reason is taper rollers area of contact circumference is more. It can take more impact.
Yeah.
That's why they are used in steering cones. So it is not designed to take higher amount of speeds,
Yeah. Spin. Got it.
spin,
Yeah.
and it cannot bear that amount of rotational load.
Is
So
the heat also produced in these things?
heat is tremendous heat is produced. So because why heat is produced? Because it has a bigger contact patch.
Got it.
So that's why taper roller bearings are used in steering columns.
Got it.
Wheel bearings, because of a roller, it has a ball, and ball has it's a point of
Minimal.
contact patch. It's
Yeah.
a very minimal contact patch. So that's why ball bearings are always used in wheels,
Got it.
because they need to. It produces less heat also. It wears means what you call, because of minimal contact patch, it wears
lesser.
lesser.
Got it. Okay, so I think one question that comes is, and a lot of people miss out on, is maintenance of bearings generally. So I think we'll just stick to the wheel bearings and the tapered or the steering bearing. What is the kind of maintenance that is required on these, and what would you say, in how many kilometers should I be checking it, and what can I do to make the life better?
So wheel bearings, see, there are, I'll explain a little more. Now, if a newbie, if he first time sees a bearing,
Yeah.
he won't see balls in it.
True.
Means
It's sealed.
it's sealed. It's
Yeah.
a sealed bearing. So uh, there are types of seals there, but I'll just explain two.
Yeah.
So there is a metal seal bearing and there is a rubber seal bearing. So the bearings have a number on it. So for example, if you take a number 6301, so 6301 is the number of that bearing. Ahead of 6301, there will be a letter, alphabetical letter written like Z. So Z means it has a metal seal. If it has a single Z, it will have a single metal seal. Other side of that bearing will be open.
Okay.
And same is R. So if it has a single R, it has only one rubber seal. Other side of that bearing will be open. So 2R or 2RS means both the sides are closed.
Okay.
2Z or 2ZS.
So Z is for metal and
Z is for metal, R is for rubber.
Okay. Got it.
So earlier, in till 2007 or 2006 and 7, you see all the manufacturer uses single R bearings, but they came to know that those bearings are failing quickly because the other side of that is open. And then they shifted. After 2008, you will see 99% of all the motorcycles, they have 2RS bearings. Z size bearings are not used.
Yeah.
Z seal bearings are not used on wheels. R size bearings are used because rubber seal is the sealing a metal, and a metal bearing, it's not waterproof.
Okay.
So you need a rubber seal bearing. So that's why they have a rubber seal on it.
Yeah.
So it may be red in color, pink in color, blue in color, black in color. So 90% of manufacturers use a black color rubber seal bearings. So the maintenance part of these bearings, they are sealed. So they are sealed for quite a long time because they lubricate those bearings with a very high quality grease. If you buy a very good quality branded bearings, like say if you have a Koyo Japan, NTN Japan, so like this SKF India bearings. SKF India bearings are the third topmost rated bearings in the world. So newbies will see, I have a Japanese bearing, why would I put an SKF bearings? SKF bearings have outmatched all the qualities in the world.
Is it?
It is
But
the
can they
third
be used?
rated.
Can they be used in superbikes? I mean, are
Yeah,
they?
of course. You can use a SKF bearing.
Okay.
So SKF makes a SKF India bearings are third in the world. In the quality, they are third in the world. If you don't get I won't say that you go and put a SKF bearing. You always put a original bearing what is there on the motorcycle. For example, if you have a Koyo bearing on your front wheel or a rear wheel, whatever, you try to procure a original bearings. But if you don't have, and if you get a SKF compatible bearing, put an SKF bearing. Later on you can change it.
But this is, you're saying I have to change it. So if I don't have to change it and if I have to maintain it, is there a way to remove a seal and re-grease it, repack it?
Yes. So that seal can be removed. It needs a very fine screwdriver, or actually
Like
why
a
I am
pick.
saying a screwdriver, because many people won't find that tool. Especially there is a special tool for that to remove that seal.
It's a pick. Okay,
Yeah,
got
it's
it.
the kind of a picker, and it has a flat surface like a screwdriver only, but it is made of nylon, so that seal is not damaged. But many people have become pro in removing it screwdriver only.
Okay, good.
If you are very careful while removing it, you can remove it aramse.
Yeah.
So once you remove that bearing, generally when you buy a new motorcycle, till 5,000 to 10,000 kilometers, you don't have to look at those bearings at all. if you are riding on city roads or what do you say, some highway rides and all that. This is related to super bikes and all enduro motorcycles. Those bearings are of very high quality. You don't need to immediately go and open the bearing and grease it. After say 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 kilometers, for checking you can remove the wheel bearing, you can remove the wheel, you can remove the outer seal of that wheel, the bearing is inside, you can check it with your hand.
Yeah.
Generally, as per rule and as a part of service, you remove the bearing out. There are tools required to get that bearing out. Some people, what they do, they put a axle from one side and they hammer the inner race of that bearing, which is not advised because inner race is the one that is rotating. You hammer it, it will take an impact. You lose the life. It's not recommended.
So you're making play in the already put in
you
play.
shouldn't hammer that inner race. But there are special tools to remove that bearing. Even if a person who doesn't have a special tool or he doesn't know how to remove a bearing, it's okay, he can remove the oil seal anyways.
Yeah.
Just remove the oil seal, you can see the bearing, clean all the dust and over there, clean it. Take a flat screwdriver, very thin one, remove the outer seal of that bearing and put grease on that. These grease are available, I think this Moto Asher has a very good quality Maxima grease available.
The waterproof one.
Waterproof grease is there. It is a NLGI 2 rated. It's a very good quality grease. Very high temperature. I mean, see, the temperature ratings, the viscosity ratings of that grease is superb. I am using it for past say 8-10 years now. It's the best quality grease available.
Yeah.
So you can get that grease and you can fill the bearing. You can fill only one side. Other side you don't need to fill. Fill that grease, put the rubber cap.
But how often this should be? Like how often have you seen it happen? 10,000 kilometers, 20,000?
10,000 kilometers, yes. 10,000 kilometers I have seen.
But how do I figure out that there's something wrong with? So you've done the packaging part, you've done the re-greasing part. I believe it's the same thing with the steering bearing as well, where you have to keep checking it, cleaning it every 10,000. How do I know that the wheel bearing, one, is gone, and second, it needs grease?
So a gone bearing, once you remove the wheel out, you remove the oil seal out, you can just feel that bearing. You hold the inner race and you hold and just move it sideways.
There will
be a play. Or you put up the front wheel on the front paddock, the fourth paddocks, what you say. You remove the calipers and you hold the wheel from opposite sides and you just jiggle it. So you can feel the play in that. So that is the direct notice that bearing is gone. If there is absolutely no play and the wheel is absolutely tight. One more thing, that after removing the calipers shouldn't rub the tires or the wheel. Just keep it, hang it such a way that it is not touching anywhere. The wheel is absolutely free to rotate. Rotate the wheel and you hold the shocker stem, the outer or inner stem or what. You just put your hand on the shocker. You can feel that friction. You can feel that rotational friction. That is one more thing.
But that is because the bearing is gone or the grease
bearing
is gone?
It's not because the grease is gone, the bearing is gone completely. There is no greasing. Don't even bother to grease that bearing. Just remove, throw it and put a new bearing. And if there is nothing as such, there is no frictional, you cannot hear any friction or play or anything, then you remove it and grease it. I'll tell you, if you keep this greasing or the maintenance of the bearing regular, every 10,000 kilometers, I have changed bearings on motorcycle at 1 lakh, 1,50,000 like this kilometers.
Wow, okay.
Till those times the bearings would last.
But that's because somebody has really regularly maintained the...
You have to take care of that.
But seal bearings, do they really require 10,000? That's what my question is. Does it really require that 10,000 to be seen?
Yeah, if we are here in India and basically Indian roads are not good. And
there's corrosion, there's water.
Water is there, dust is there. All these things, bundle up, come together and they start destroying the bearing.
Cool. I think that's a full lesson on bearings
Yes.
and grease from Yogesh. So yeah, so thanks so much. I think that's
Yeah, one more thing I would like to tell you, even if you are planning to do a steering stem overall,
Yeah.
or say if you want to do a shocker
swing arm,
swing arm
which is the
overall.
most like I've not seen anybody do it.
Yeah, it's a means no, very few people know about this, but
Yeah.
it is there.
Yeah.
So, for example, somebody opens a sprocket and finds a needle roller bearing or a ball bearing. He wants to do that also.
Yeah.
So, for these things, I would say that for wheel bearings, you can use a NLGI2 grease, which
Yeah.
is available. It's a waterproof grease, blue color grease. It comes. There is one more grease, which is called as an assembly grease. It's
Yeah.
a red color grease.
Yeah.
That is very high quality, very superior for assembly purposes. So that grease is used where you can use it in steering stem along with the NLGI2 grease. Means you can mix both the grease and use it.
So that's a free.
Yeah.
Like basically, it puts a proper layer of it.
Proper layer. It's an because it's called an assembly grease because it's an assembly grease.
Yeah.
You need to use that grease where on the steering stem, on the swing arm joints, on the shocker joints, on the rear sprocket bearings.
But these are all for the new bearings that you're putting, or you can also do it. You can clean the older bearings and put in assembly grease.
You can clean the older bearings and put it.
Okay, got it. Great, thank you so much, Yogesh.
you.
I think this was a nice quick one, and we wanted just to get into a specific topic.
Yes.
So yeah, thank you so much, and yeah, we'll get you back again soon.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. I want to hear your stories, your motorcycle experiences, what you've been doing, and how motorcycles have made your life better. So if you have something to say, DM us on Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to get you on this podcast.